I was standing outside my father's study, just about to knock, when I heard my name. What I wasn't prepared for was the sentence that followed. "We can't afford both," Dad said, his voice low and tired. "Emily's law school has to take priority. Sarah will have to manage at the diner." I froze. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd misunderstood. Perhaps he was talking about someone else. But then I heard my mother's voice, soft, as always. "But Robert, we promised both girls we'd help with their education. Emily has a future. Real potential," he replied. "Sarah, she needs to be practical." I backed away, my chest tightening. 22 years of trying to be enough, to prove I wasn't just the other daughter, shattered in that moment. I wasn't surprised, not really. But hearing it spoken so plainly hit me in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't even bother taking off my jacket. I grabbed my keys and walked out. By the time I returned for our weekly family night, I had rehearsed what I would say. I tried to tell myself to stay calm, to not let them see how badly they'd hurt me. But when I sat down at the table and saw Emily glowing while she talked about campus visits, and my parents nodding like she hung the stars, I lost it. "So," I began, keeping my voice steady, "when exactly were you going to tell me that my future doesn't matter?" The table went silent. My mom blinked rapidly. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" "I heard you," I said, turning to my dad. "Law school for Emily. The diner is for me. Practical, right?" "Sarah, it's not like that," he started. "No? Then how is it?" Emily looked confused, and maybe a little guilty. "Dad didn't mean." "You don't have to defend him," I cut in. "You're the priority. You always have been." My voice cracked despite my trying to stay strong. "I've been saving every tip. I've been picking up extra shifts. I gave up my weekend classes because Mom said we couldn't afford them. And all along, you two had a plan that didn't include me." "We were trying to do what's best," Dad said, his voice rising. "For whom?" I snapped. "Because it's never been for me." I didn't wait for a response. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and left the house, slamming the door behind me. I didn't know where I was going at first. I just drove, blinking away the tears. But my heart knew where it needed to go, Aunt Clara's. Her porch light was on when I pulled up. She opened the door before I even knocked. "Oh, honey," she said, pulling me into a hug. I had a feeling tonight would be the night. I cried in her arms for a long time before we sat down in her kitchen, the scent of chamomile tea already brewing. Clara had always been my safe place, the only adult in my life who treated me like I mattered. "They're giving it all to Emily," I finally said. "Law school. Support. Everything. I'm just the backup plan." Clara didn't look shocked. She looked more like she'd been expecting this moment for years. She got up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a small black folder. When she set it in front of me, I hesitated. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a bank statement, the kind that made my breath catch. My name was on the account. The balance was just over $48,000. "I started putting it aside after your 12th birthday," she said. "Little bits here and there. Tax returns, gifts, whatever I could manage. I knew someday you'd need it more than anyone realized." I couldn't speak. My throat tightened with emotion. "But why?" I asked. "Because, sweetheart, I've seen it. The way they treat you. You've always been the one who had to work harder for half the recognition. And I couldn't stop it, but I could make sure when the time came, you had a way out." I reached across the table and grabbed her hand. "You don't know what this means to me," I whispered. She smiled gently. "I think I do." That night, I slept in the guest room at Clara's, surrounded by warmth I hadn't felt in years. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter. I felt like someone with a chance. Enrolling in business school felt like waking up from a fog I didn't even realize I'd been living in. I wasn't doing it to prove anything to my parents anymore. This was for me. For the girl who used to fold diner menus while dreaming about owning something of her own. For the young woman who finally had a chance to build her future without waiting for someone else's permission. With Aunt Clara's help, I registered for classes, found a part-time office assistant job on campus, and rented a small apartment above a florist shop. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every night, I studied by the window, sometimes sipping tea from one of Clara's old mugs. I felt like I was piecing together a life I could finally be proud of. It was almost 6 months into my new life when the headlines hit. Local finance firm rocked by fraud scandal. Executive Mark Whitaker in custody.
Mark.
Emily's Mark. I clicked through the articles, my hands trembling. According to the reports, Mark had been running an elaborate investment scheme using false documents and stolen identities. The most shocking part? Emily's name appeared multiple times, listed as someone who authorized several questionable transfers. I hadn't spoken to Emily since that night I walked out. And suddenly, there she was on every news channel, her face looking stunned and pale as reporters hounded her outside the courthouse. I wasn't surprised when she called 2 days later. "Sarah, please don't hang up," she said the second I answered. Her voice was thin, brittle. I didn't know who else to call. A dozen bitter thoughts came to mind, like how she hadn't known who to call when I was struggling with night shifts and tuition dreams. But something in her voice softened me. "I'm listening," I said flatly. I swear I didn't know what Mark was doing. I thought it was all legit, but they're investigating me too. I might lose everything. School, my job, my reputation. I don't know what to do. I was silent for a beat. "So, why are you calling me?" "Because you're the only one who ever tells the truth. Mom and Dad are too busy pretending it's all a misunderstanding. I need someone who won't sugarcoat it." I sighed. "You don't need sugarcoating. You need a lawyer." "I have one," she said. "But I don't know. Courage? A reality check? You always had that." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. But it was something. I told her I'd meet her the next day. We walked into the prosecutor's office together, her in a stiff black blazer, me in jeans and a cardigan that still smelled faintly like Clara's laundry soap. The receptionist recognized her immediately. "Ms. Whitaker." "Turner," she corrected softly. "I'm not married." I stayed quiet, letting her speak for herself. The prosecutor's assistant came to take her back, but Emily grabbed my hand. "Will you come in with me?" I hesitated. "Emily, I need to do this right. And I know you'll make sure I don't lie to myself."
So I did.
Not for her, but for what was right. The meeting was intense. The prosecutor laid out everything: emails, documents, digital trails. Emily's lawyer fought back, showing where Mark had forged her signature or looped her in without her full knowledge. Still, it didn't look good. When the prosecutor asked her why she'd kept silent for so long, Emily looked at me before answering. "Because I was scared. And because I didn't think I could come back from this." I spoke for the first time. People don't come back from pretending everything is fine. They come back by facing it. The prosecutor gave a slight nod. "Let's hope that's what you're doing." Outside the building, Emily broke down in tears. "I've been so stupid," she said. "So blind." "Yeah," I said honestly. "You have. But at least you're starting to see now." She looked at me. "Do you think I can come back from this?" "I don't know," I replied. "But owning your mistakes is a start. Just don't expect a shortcut." We stood there for a moment, not as sisters, not quite as enemies, just two women who had finally stopped pretending. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need her apology to move forward. I already was. Business school didn't just change my schedule, it changed me. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I wasn't dragging myself through double shifts or waiting for someone to notice me. I was learning, thriving, and building something real. Making the dean's list felt surreal. When I got the email, I stared at the screen for 10 full minutes. Then I forwarded it to Aunt Clara with a simple note. "We did it." She called me that night, crying happy tears. She said she always knew I had it in me, and I believed her. It wasn't long before I caught the attention of Greg Matthews, a local restaurant owner who'd come to speak to our class about scalable food businesses. Afterward, I introduced myself and told him about my years at Pete's Diner. "You know how to survive a rush," he said, laughing. "That's more than most business grads I meet." We started meeting regularly. He'd ask me about operations, hiring issues, and marketing strategies. Before I knew it, I was helping him draft a proposal to expand his concept statewide. It was everything I dreamed of doing, using my education and experience to create something that worked. Something mine. But life has a way of testing your boundaries just when you start to feel steady. One afternoon, I came home to a letter taped to my door. No envelope, just folded paper with my mother's handwriting. Please call us. It's important. I shouldn't have, but I did. My dad picked up. Sarah, we need your help. I stayed silent. It's Emily, he said. Her legal bills are piling up. We're drowning. You want money. Not just money, he said quickly. We know Clara left you something. We were thinking maybe just a portion of it could help your sister get through this. You're doing well now. You have a good job, school.
Stop, I said.
Just stop. Sarah, please. My mom cut in. You have no idea how hard this has been for Emily. No, I think I do, I replied coldly. But that's not the point. You didn't believe in me when I needed you most.
Clara did.
And now that I have something she gave me, you want to take that too? Don't be selfish, Dad said. She's your sister. I hung up. 2 days later, they showed up at Pete's diner. I was working part-time there again, mostly helping with inventory while finishing my final semester and planning the rollout with Greg. My name was on the expansion proposal. I was going to be an owner. They walked in during the lunch rush, all fake smiles and forced calm. Sweetheart, can we talk? My mom said, already walking behind the counter like she used to when I was a kid. I stepped out of the kitchen, wiping my hands. If this is about money, leave. Sarah, my dad said, we just want you to remember where you came from. Believe me, I said, loud enough for every booth to hear. I remember exactly where I came from. I remember being told to be practical while Emily got everything. I remember overhearing you choose her future over mine. And I remember being told I didn't have potential. Well, I do. And I'm not going to let you drain me now that you finally see it. Don't make a scene, my mom whispered. I'm not making a scene. I'm making a point. Greg had come out from the back, quietly listening. After my parents left, flushed and silent, I expected a lecture. Instead, he clapped a hand on my shoulder. That was long overdue, he said. Also, about that regional manager role, we want you to take it. You're the one who built this with me. I want you at the top. I blinked. Are you serious? As serious as those customers who just tipped you $20 for standing your ground. I laughed. For the first time in years, it wasn't bitter. It was free. 2 weeks later, I packed to my apartment. I said goodbye to Clara with a long hug and promised her she'd always have the first booth reserved wherever we open next. Then I left town. Not out of anger, not in flight, but in freedom. And that made all the difference. I was poring over regional hiring plans in my new office when the call came. The kind of call that makes the world slow down and your breath catch before the words even finish landing. Clara was gone. Aunt Clara, the one person who had believed in me when no one else had passed peacefully in her sleep. The nurse said she'd seemed content that week, asking about my latest progress and saying she was proud. I hadn't seen her in 3 weeks. 3 weeks is too long. I drove back in silence, the landscape passing in a blur. It didn't feel real until I pulled up to her house and saw Emily sitting on the porch, red-eyed and clutching something in her lap. She wanted you to have this, she said softly, handing me a small wooden box. She made me promise. She said you'd know what to do with it. Inside was a USB drive, marked only with a silver sticker that read, Truth. I didn't speak. I just took it upstairs and plugged it into Clara's old laptop. There were files. Dozens. Organized by date. Emails, bank statements, notarized letters. Video recordings. One folder was titled Sarah's Education Fund, adjusted twice. Another was Robert and Susan Turner, hidden accounts. I read through them with shaking hands. It was all there. My parents hadn't just chosen Emily. They'd actively diverted funds meant for both of us, funneled Clara's earlier education contributions into secret accounts under Emily's name, then lied about it. They had forged Aunt Clara's signature to take early withdrawals from her trust. Even Emily's early internship at a top firm? Arranged with bribes. But most shocking of all was a letter, Clara's voice in black and white. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone and the truth is now yours. I couldn't save you from their favoritism, Sarah. But I could make sure one day you'd have power. Don't let them rewrite history. Make them answer for it. Emily came into the room as I finished reading. She looked ashamed. She told me about some of it before she died, she said. But I didn't know how deep it went. Or that they used me, too. I looked at her. You didn't stop it. I didn't know, she said, her voice cracking. I believed them when they said I earned everything. But I didn't. Not all of it. For the first time, we stood on the same side. Not as sisters trying to outshine each other, but as two women who had both been lied to. I think it's time they knew we know, I said. The meeting was arranged under the pretense of settling Clara's final estate matters. Our parents arrived confident, smug, dressed in their usual expensive formality. They expected a routine discussion. They didn't see the storm coming. Emily slid the USB across the table. What's this? Dad asked. The truth, I replied. The lawyer plugged it in, projected the files. One by one, the documents appeared. Bank transfers. Forged letters. A video of Clara reading her final message aloud. I trusted you with my legacy, she said on screen. And you used it to play favorites. To hurt one child and manipulate the other. I leave everything to Sarah, not out of spite, but because she earned it the hard way. My mom's face went pale. Dad gripped the edge of the table. This is illegal, he stammered. No, the lawyer replied. What you did was illegal. What we're offering is a choice. Emily spoke next, her voice steady. You can either take this to court, let the evidence go public, and deal with the fraud charges, or you can sign over every remaining asset, every cent, every title, every deed, and disappear. No contact. No comeback. You're blackmailing us, Mom hissed. No, I said. We're giving you a mercy you never gave us. They stared at each other, and in that moment, I saw it, the panic. The realization that they'd finally lost control. An hour later, they signed. No tears. No hugs. No apologies. They left that office the way they had always operated, thinking of themselves first. But this time, they walked out with nothing. Emily turned to me. Do you think this will make things better? I shook my head.
No.
But it stops them from making things worse. We stepped into the sunlight, no longer daughters seeking approval, but women who had claimed the truth. And finally, the truth was ours to shape. Taking over our father's firm was never part of the plan. But after the legal fallout had settled, the board didn't have many options. The company was unstable, the clients uneasy, and the reputation in tatters. Emily had the credentials, despite everything, and I had the clarity and fire to rebuild it the right way. Greg, ever the visionary, was the first to say what we hadn't dared to consider. Merge it, he said over coffee one morning. Combine the firm with the restaurant group. Legal consulting and operations support under one umbrella. Think bigger than redemption. Think reinvention. So we did. Emily focused on compliance, ethics, and reform. I headed strategy and expansion. We called it New Branch Collective, a name Clara would have loved. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about growing from it. One night, while sorting through Clara's attic, Emily found a small box marked for the girls. Final message. Inside was an old DVD. We watched it on the tiny player Clara had used for holiday movies. Her familiar voice filled the room once more, her eyes as kind and knowing as ever. If you're seeing this, she said, then you've done it. You've broken the cycle. You've chosen truth over comfort, courage over silence. I couldn't change the family you were born into, but I always believed in the family you could build. She smiled softly. You were never meant to compete. You were meant to rise. Together. By the end of it, we were both crying. Emily started over in a quiet town nearby, opening a non-profit legal aid office for young women. She didn't chase titles anymore. She chased meaning. And I? I kept building. The new branch grew quickly, drawing attention from industries we'd never imagined. I traveled, led conferences, and stood in boardrooms where no one questioned if I belonged. Still, every few months, I returned to Clara's house. It was empty now, the rooms still holding her warmth. I never stayed long, just long enough to feel her presence. To sit in the sunroom where we used to sip tea and dream about impossible things. On my last visit, I walked through each room, touching the door frames, the windowsills, the kitchen counters. I ended up on the porch with one of her mugs, watching the light spill across the grass. That house had witnessed everything, from whispered doubts to quiet triumphs. I used to think justice meant making them pay. That one day, I'd see them fall and feel whole again. But as I sat there, wind tugging gently at my hair, I realized something deeper. Justice wasn't revenge. It was being able to walk away, to choose your path with your own hands and never again let anyone else write your worth. And that, more than anything, was the legacy Clara gave me. Not wealth, not proof, but power. The quiet, undeniable power of becoming who you were always meant to be.